Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Precursor. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. It was only 20 years ago today that I started in Major League Baseball. And as I looked ahead to the next 20 years, whatever my career, the path it would take, whether it's a World Series victory, whether it's moving from Montreal to Florida, not even a kernel of a thought in my mind, I'm not sure that I could have laid out a path at that moment that would have led me or the news that I'm sharing with you to today. 20 years. That's not a lot of time. And yesterday, we got an answer to our Juan Soto question. This year's biggest free agent, biggest generational player, the most talented player you've ever seen is going to the New York Mets. If you're living under a rock or you just slept and just woke up, you're hearing this for the first time. That the day the winter meetings began, Scott Boras took over. I thought he'd wait a day so he could have a press conference talking about his great player. But there's no waiting when you get right to the edge of insanity. 15 years, $765 million. Sounds like $65 million more than Shohei Ohtani. That doesn't seem that much. Ohtani got $700 million over 10 years just last offseason. 15 years for Soto. He's 4 years younger. The math is working out perfectly. This is not a huge deal for Juan Soto until you read the details. Shohei Ohtani will get paid $2 million a year for 10 years and then $68 million for the next 10 years while he's not playing. Juan Soto will get $765 million over 15 years, but no deferrals. That's right, you heard it. Not $1. As a matter of fact, Juan Soto will get $75 million, about 10% of the contract right now upon signing. The word actually in the contract is upon confirmation because MLB has to confirm the contract. The union has to confirm the contract. He has to pass a physical. And believe you me, he'll have MRIs on everything from his head down to his toes. $75 million. And then the balance over the next 15 years. Another point. There is an opt-out that Juan Soto has. That's right. The dreaded opt-out. When we gave Giancarlo Stanton not too many years ago, like a decade ago, what was then a record $325 million. Side note, I told you, Giancarlo, you wouldn't have to worry long that your contract is the biggest contract. And boy, he didn't. We gave Giancarlo an opt-out after a bunch of years, after 6 or 7 years was his opt-out. And it's not every year you get one chance. The New York Mets have given Juan Soto the chance after 5 years to opt out of his contract when he'll only be 31 years old. And if he doesn't want to opt out, he's still going to say he does, because guess what the Mets have to do if Juan Soto opts out in 5 years? Instead of $51 million a year for the remainder of the deal, which would be 10 more years, he gets $55 million per year for the remainder of the deal. So the AAV of the remaining years would go up from 51 to 55 million just to stop Soto from opting out. Spoiler alert, 5 years from now, barring catastrophic injury or some sort of lack of performance, the likes of which we can't predict or contemplate, you can bet your bippy that Juan Soto will opt out after 5 years and use it as a complete sword right into the heart of Mets fans. How did this happen? Juan Soto's entire life was a precursor to this moment. Nobody wanted to see it. We did. When you choose Scott Boras as your agent, you are not choosing your love of Monument Park. You're not choosing the beauty of playing where David Ortiz played and hitting balls out off the Green Monster. The fantastic living that you can have in Toronto. Joining the behemoth of the Dodgers. When you choose Scott Boras as your agent, you are choosing one thing: money. You know what? Good. Never begrudged anyone for choosing Scott Boras. I begrudge people who don't understand what players are doing. They're not stupid. It is a purposeful choice. So let's go back just a few years. That's all, a few years. Ted Lerner, rest in peace, like my grandfather. 440 million, 12 years, record. More than I paid for the franchise, sonny boy. We'll put deferrals in there. What do you think? Juan Soto said, I'll bet on myself. And Ted Lerner and the Washington Nationals said, we're going to have to trade you. Juan Soto gets traded to the West Coast, far from where he wanted to be. Family in the Dominican, feeling as though the East Coast, if not Florida, made the most sense for him. He gets to San Diego, falls in love with Peter Seidler. Who doesn't? A man who has dreams, visions of being something that he and the team could never be. Except during his time with the Padres, rumors persisted. Trouble in the clubhouse. Was it Tatis? Turns out maybe not. Was it Soto jealous that everyone had the long-term deals, but he still was a free agent playing for his soup? Extension from the Padres? I think not. Here's the plan. The Padres didn't win with him. How about pinstripes? And then starts a 1-year courtship, a love affair with New York. People calling out his name in the roll call before starts, before each game. Juan Soto. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Garrett Cole, Monument Park, the World Series. Yankees thinking, we got him. We are going to have Juan Soto as our next Hall of Famer. We have not been willing to do for any player what we're willing to do for him. We didn't have to do it for Judge when there was a thought that Judge may go to San Francisco or Toronto. Turns out Aaron Judge had loyalty to pinstripes. Juan Soto never had loyalty to pinstripes. Anyone paying attention to Juan Soto and Scott Boras knows that. But fans, they get drawn in by the beauty, by the passion, by James Earl Jones. Those are voices and adjectives that are not used by Juan Soto and Scott Boras. So it sets up to an auction. This wasn't free agency. This was exactly what had been planned from day one. There was an auction. And it just so happens that only 4 years ago, a new bidder decided to put his credit card down and get a paddle. The new bidder was Steve Cohen. He raised his arm. He looked at his limited partners, the Wilpons, and said, I'll take the Mets. Over $2 billion? I'll take the Mets. We can't compete with the Yankees. I'll take the Mets. There's really no way that we could ever be anything other than the ugly stepchild. I'll take the Mets. And then Steve Cohen meets the media, meets you, the fans, and says, 3 to 5 years. That's what I'm asking. Give me 3 to 5 years and I will give you a World Series. Year 1, year 2, year 3. Mistakes, new owner-itis. This is a lot harder than I thought it was. Year 4, a fantastically miraculous run to the National League Championship Series. You are so close to the World Series, you can taste it. It's a step forward. The Bulls are ready to beat the Pistons. It's time. Then you enter into the offseason. You have a good number of free agents available, but there's only one who you want. There's one who you've put your mind on, and Steve Cohen is a patient man. Steve Cohen knew that he wanted David Stearns when David Stearns was driving to cops in Whitefish Bay. That's a custard place. If you know, you know. Steve Cohen waited and got his man. Steve Cohen made some mistakes with managers. Feels like he found the right one with Carlos Mendoza. Carlos Mendoza's son may have leaked the fact that Juan Soto was going to be a Met, but no, we didn't want to believe it because there's still 5 teams in it. We're hearing rumors from people in the media, sources, leaks. There's still 5 teams, maybe 4. Then recently, Yankees, Mets. It was choreographed. There's no greater conductor than Scott Boras when you've got 2 teams after a player and neither of them can lose. Steve Cohen is at the point in his ownership career 5 years in where he's got to take the next step because the ego of an owner, he wants to stand up next October and he wants his social media people to play the clip from the day he took over. He wants to be right. He wants to walk around New York City not as the number 2 team in New York, but his vision, the number 1 team in New York. The development that he wants to do around Citi Field, we can make fun of the chop shops all we want. His vision is that it becomes a park, a destination where people can lose their hard-earned money, casinos, or they can go spend time and engage with baseball or greenery or beauty, something you wouldn't associate with Queens. Think about for a minute Steve Cohen buying the Mets with his sole goal of making them a better franchise than the Yankees. You know very well because you've seen it before. The precursor, the playbook. It was started by another Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer paid an unbelievable price for the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers, the relationship to the Lakers, it's the same as the relationship of the Mets to the Yankees. What do? You call the agent and you say, we're going to win. It's a matter of when, not if. I understand that I'm dealing with the Dodgers. I understand I'm dealing with the Yankees. But I'm going to win. Men like Steve Cohen, when they see something they want, whether it's a piece of art at an auction or a player in free agency, they view it as the same. The irony is that art does not have to be a declining asset the way players are. It can be if you choose badly and have a bad eye. But if you don't, it can be an increasing asset. Players are not. Juan Soto in 10 years will not be worth nearly what Juan Soto is today. The 26-year-old Juan Soto is a Picasso. The 40-year-old Soto is a Samson. But it doesn't matter. Because what Steve Cohen, next part of his plan, it doesn't end with Juan Soto. He continues to build around him. Why? Because Steve Cohen gets sat down by David Stearns. And David Stearns says, this is great. You didn't need me to negotiate this deal. All you did was hear Scott Boras lie to you or not lie to you. Maybe tell you the truth, maybe not tell you the truth. And you went over. But now it's my turn. Now you've got to let me surround Juan Soto with winning players. You have to help me build a pipeline. Let me spend the maximum internationally. Make sure I have the budget to do whatever I want all through the minor league system. Make sure that I have the money to go out and sign Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes, his Yankee teammate, gets 3 years, $38 million, an overpay. It doesn't even register. It's not even a 2 on the Richter scale. The reason it's not, they're going to make him a starter. If it works, great. If he goes AJ Puck, then he'll just be a reliever again. No problem. Bring me Frankie Montas. No problem. David Stearns is going to help the Mets around the edges while Steve Cohen helps them with right between the eyes. Because Juan Soto is not the last free agent the Mets are going to sign. Because if he is, then the Mets aren't going to win. The thing about this deal that interests me the most is tomorrow. Now that Juan Soto has the money that he has wanted and he has basically telegraphed for all to see, it won't change his approach. It won't change his skill. It won't change his war. I believe in the ability of Juan Soto can overcome this lack of drive, which would really befall anybody who all of a sudden has a guaranteed $765 million. I don't think it happens to Juan Soto now. Juan Soto wants to build a legacy of jewelry. Juan Soto would like to be the greatest Dominican player of all time. Then he'd like to set his sights on being the greatest of all time. Can the greatest player of all time not be a Yankee? There's nothing in the world that says you have to be other than history. So Juan Soto joins this Mets team. He will look around and understand the burden of expectations. He will also understand the degree of hatred that Yankee fans will have, and baseball will have to come to grips with the reality of what happened with this deal. Because for all the business people out there, the perfect storm of 26 years old and being the best hitter now will go back to 41 years old, 15 years. We're going to spread it out for luxury tax purposes. We're going to give Juan Soto, give any player permanent security, injury, lack of performance. This is guaranteed at signing every dollar. But guess what? There's going to be another one and another one and another one. Alex Rodriguez wasn't the last one. Aaron Judge wasn't the last one. Shohei Ohtani wasn't the last one. Juan Soto's not going to be the last one. There will be another 26-year-old free agent. And if MLB does not change the rules on maximum years in a contract, if MLB does not change the rules and how luxury tax is calculated, we are moments away from $1 billion player. Is there ever an inflection point when it comes to the ability of people to earn money? The answer is no. It's the perfect system that we have. All you need is competition. It puts the C in capitalism, in competition. The fact of the matter is that Juan Soto's signing with the Mets has a ripple effect, much more so than Ohtani, much more so than when Garrett Cole chose to be a Yankee, more so than any free agent I can think of, because there were a number of franchises who decided that this was the moment to go publicly all in. When you go publicly all in on someone, you're left to clean up the mess when you don't get them. You're left to explain this is fine because we've got our next plan ready to go. Will Brian Cashman say, I forgive you, Alex Bregman, come play third base for me? Will he look at Christian Walker? Will he go to Corbin Burns and say, hey, Scott, you really screwed me here, but I'll take care of you. Can you just make sure Corbin Burns comes to me and we'll put him at the top of the rotation, and we'll make sure during the Subway Series that Soto, the most he can do is 1 for 4 with 2 walks? Does he pivot to Max Fried? Let's go in an organized way, please. Please. I started with the Mets. They're not done. They can't be done. Let's talk Yankees. The New York Yankees did something very uncomfortable, and calls are going to be made to Aaron Judge. If you're Aaron Boone, if you're Hal Steinbrenner, if you're Brian Cashman, you are communicating with your captain. You're communicating with Giancarlo Stanton, the other leader of your team. You're communicating with Garrett Cole. Hal Steinbrenner had been known for years, I'm not going to be irresponsible. He will calculate this deal is irresponsible, but then word leaked out that the Yankees were right there. 16 years, not 15. Going to age 42, what's the difference? He won't be performing at 42 for the Yankees or 41 for the Mets. It doesn't work. You're going to be Pujols or Cabrera. That's what Soto will be, but it's about now. So word gets out because Hal Steinbrenner wants Yankee fans to know we wanted to keep the band together. We wanted Soto and Judge together, just like they were, one step away from another ring. We won the pennant, but it wasn't enough, but so close. How do the players feel about that? Aaron Judge basically told you how he felt. Yeah, I'm not getting involved. Didn't really sound like, as we told you a couple episodes ago, that sounded a little strange, didn't it? No full court press from the teammates who loved him so very much. Please, if you're not watching this, can you hear the sarcasm? You think that players don't see through other players and that they all love each other off the field? They certainly love what they can do on the field if they perform. Go out of their way to have a player come in who's going to get paid twice as much as the captain? Please. The Yankees need to release a statement, and they can do it one of two ways. They can't go silent now. Either they announce a free agent signing in the next 48 hours that enables them to meet the media, to talk to their fans, to say, despondent, we tried for a great player. We are appreciative of the season he had, but we are looking at reallocating any dollars we had for Juan Soto, and we're doing it. And this is an example. And you present Corbin Burns or Max Fried. This is an example of this reallocation. If the Yankees only had special money for Juan Soto and they don't reallocate any of it, then you're sort of like the Marlins. I don't think that's going to happen. And the Yankees are in a better position to reallocate. They're in a better position to bring on 3 or 4 players than the Red Sox, than the Blue Jays, than the Dodgers. This is heaven for Scott Boras and his other clients, because every one of the bidding teams, forget the Rays, every one of the bidding teams has owners who have capacity, has owners who have ego, and they have owners who are willing to spend in order to make it right for their fans. Just think about it. I was thinking about this the other day, Coca, like 4 hours ago. Not the other day. It would have been this day. Think about John Henry right now. He never meets the media. He shies away, but he's got to put Craig Breslow out there. Sometimes Tom Werner, but maybe Sam Kennedy, president. Someone's going to have to talk, because the Red Sox, either they're going to say, you can't blame me. We were right there, and he went with the Mets. What are we going to do? Thank God that he's out of our division, but what are we going to do? That's fine for the first press conference. That's not fine for the spring training press conference. It's not even close to fine for the spring training press conference, where you have to talk about the team that you have. And it's only 1 year ago that the Red Sox fell down the rabbit hole when their owner said, we're all in, baby. We got this. And they ended up going with nobody. Devers doesn't have a playmate. The Blue Jays, they followed a private plane as it flew from Anaheim to Toronto. The whole band went to meet the plane, and out came an executive saying, hey, is there an in and out here? The Blue Jays, as I go and talk to people in Toronto, as I go on shows like Blair and Barker, the fans are just desperate. We don't want to lose. Rogers, their owner, steps up. They're making offers for a bunch of players. Why is it that no one's accepting? Is it possible that you have to go to an unimaginable place? Juan Soto could have been a Toronto Blue Jay. There's no question. All you had to do was go to 15 years, $1 billion. He would have been a Blue Jay. I promise you that. Is there any level of fiscal responsibility when it's actually a public company that's involved in your team? No. The perfect storm is what got Juan Soto to the Mets. The perfect storm that didn't just form over the Atlantic and give us 13 days. This is the perfect storm that we had right in front of us the entire time. Every step was a precursor to the next step. There will be fallout from this. And I don't mean end of the world type fallout. I don't mean people are going into their bunkers. I'm saying that teams will sit down today, they'll lick their wounds. The Blue Jays will figure out, do we overspend for Vladdy? Do we keep Bichette? The Yankees will figure out, do they forgive Bregman or spend an ungodly amount on pitching, which they don't like doing? As far as Major League Baseball is concerned, this is all a precursor to what's going to happen over the course of the next 2 years. I wasn't lying to you when I told you that the next collective bargaining negotiation is going to make the previous one look like child's play. The owner v. owner situation is going to be significant. Everyone knew what they were getting with Steve Cohen, but it's different when you see it up close and personal. When you're John Middleton of the Phillies, you were never in on Juan Soto because you're now selling shares just to pay for all the people you already have. You're not getting more people. He looks at a team in his division and he says, am I closer to the Marlins? The Atlanta Braves with a brilliant front office. Move after move that works. Success after success. Am I closer to the Marlins? These are serious questions that will be asked during the course of an owner v. owner negotiation, because when you're asking, are you closer to a team? Fill in the blank. There are about 10 teams like that, which means you have the ability as a block of low revenue teams to block votes, to make changes. Is it a level playing field in baseball? No, it's just not. Certain people can shop at Saks and certain people can shop at TJ Maxx. And every once in a while, when you go shop at Saks, but you should be at TJ Maxx, guess what happens? You may buy something, but it's overpriced and it still shows when you drop your red wine on it. I am fascinated by the stories that will come forward now, by the way the teams will spin it. We'll go through every one over the coming days because every team will have to address this who was in on Soto. The teams who don't go right to their alternate plan quickly, they're going to have to answer. And they're going to have some choices. They can go right at it. They can be excuse makers. They can be honest. We'll find out. I want to mention to you before I take a break, we had a bunch of wait to sees about Juan Soto, and every one of them was right. And when we do a wait to see, we tell you what's going to happen, but we revisit it. I promise you. Way back in February, when he became a Yankee, February 20th, 2024, I told you Soto would not sign long-term with the Yankees. And I was right. On November 1st, just over a month ago, I told you he will not sign before the winter meetings. I was right. He signed during the winter meetings. I think fondly about the time when Hal Steinbrenner announced, I'm ready to negotiate with Juan Soto right now. We laughed on Nothing Personal about that. Can you imagine spending your whole life waiting for a moment and then saying, no, I'll pass, right when it's in front of you? And later in November, on November 8th of this year, I actually said Juan Soto will sign with the Mets. It was an official wait to see. When Stevie wants something, Stevie gets it. And boy, you better want what you get because you now have it. Juan Soto is a Met for 15 years and $765 million, not one penny deferred. All right, let's take a break, Coca. And when we come back, we will Oh, do you want me to mention one more thing about Conforto? Do you want me to just mention before we go to break that the Dodgers, being the Dodgers, gave Michael Conforto 1 year at $17 million, taking him away from the Giants? That's a good one. That the Dodgers gave Blake Trinan 22 million, that the Dodgers could get Rory Sasaki, who's going to be posted, that the Dodgers are going to re-sign Teoscar, that the Dodgers got Blake Snell and Otani and Freeman and Betts, that the Dodgers are going to be competing with the Mets for the pennant for as long as any National League team can think about and remember. To mention the despondency that is being felt in National League cities across our land, I could mention it, or we could do it after the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Even on a day when baseball rules, there's still movies to be watched. There's football to be discussed. There's storylines outside of baseball. But I'll tell you, this rundown took a turn late last night. I couldn't wait to talk about the movie that I watched yesterday. I was so busy yesterday, but never too busy to watch a movie. First of all, thank you for watching and listening and downloading. If you're watching, you're seeing a very boring background. I'll be in studio in the Levitard studio in Miami for the rest of the week. But due to space constraints, I'm actually not in a cell. Wow, I should have traveled with Wilson or some sort of background. So for those of you watching on the DraftKings Network or on YouTube, sorry it doesn't look great, but at least I didn't wear the white Nothing Personal shirt. I knew enough to wear the black Nothing Personal shirt today. The movie I watched is an interesting one, and we're going to find out today. As a matter of fact, it's happening while we're live. So if you're watching this on DraftKings Network, it already happened. The Golden Globe nominations are out today, and we will talk about them more tomorrow. I will do a segment on them. But in the meantime, one of the movies that has a chance to be nominated is called A Different Man. A Different Man is a movie with Sebastian Stan. And it is about a man who has a disease, and it causes tumors to grow on his face. And it makes him look like Eric Stoltz of the movie Mask. And this is a very real situation. So there is an actor out there who actually has this condition. And this movie, who also stars the woman who starred in The Worst Person in the World, which is phenomenal. There is a situation where you are watching an actor in makeup act with an actor who's not in makeup, trying to get the love of a girl, of a beautiful woman who may or may not have a manipulative bone in her body. She does. Trying to figure out, is it better to be deformed? Is it better to be Sebastian Stan post-deformity, where it is handsome as can be? An amazing lesson to be learned. Is it about the way you look on the outside? Is it a way that you feel on the inside? Do people who are deformed or have growths or who are ugly, do they miss that when all of a sudden they're not? Are they looked at differently? Do they notice it? This is a brilliant movie on a subject that gets discussed a lot. Go watch A Different Man, because the way it's dealt with is unique in every way, as befitting its title. It's called A Different Man. There was a lot of excitement that came with yesterday's Week 14 in the NFL, and I wanted to go through a whole bunch of things. But something happened to me during the break. And Coca, do not be angry. I mean, this is our show. We're live. So if you're angry, you can yell it in my ear. I want to talk about something that will result from this deal. And I've been thinking about it. And during the quick break, I feel like I didn't go into enough detail. And I have so many more thoughts in it. And I was going to save it for tomorrow. But I want to get it out to you now, because we want to be first on Nothing Personal. Live at 8 a.m. Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel. I was thinking about some of the videos I watched, and we can't show them because there's so many swears. There's so much vitriol and anger with Yankee fans right now. Not acceptance. They're not at that part of the grieving process yet. They're at the anger part. You can see it on X anywhere. People yelling and screaming, burning Soto Yankee jerseys in effigy, telling him how unlucky he is to have to play in the chop shops for 15 years, hating on him. There's a different type of reaction, however, that interests me more. And the reaction is, are we able to be in a sport without a salary cap? And people are misunderstanding something about that fact. Because we used to hear that inside meetings. Owners would come up, or executives, they'd present something to say that our sport would be better with a salary cap. And we'd go ahead and speak to low revenue teams and say, the salary cap comes with a salary floor. How are we going to fund that? Funding a salary floor, what does that mean? That means that a salary floor is necessary and a part of having a salary cap. A salary floor is going to be well above the payroll of, we always calculated, about 4 teams per year. There are 4 teams per year that would be below a salary floor, and they would not have the cash available to get to the floor. They would need extra payments from revenue sharing payors or from MLB Central Fund that would be split 30 ways. But it would be year after year, sometimes different teams. And we thought about rules. You can only be below the floor 2 years in a row. On the 3rd year, you have to find your way above the floor, which is always rising. The thing about making a salary cap league, where you see it in the NBA, where you see it in the NFL. The NFL is a great example. There are teams everywhere, whether it's Green Bay or whether it's Dallas. They are able to generate the revenue because they split the national revenue. They are able to get to the salary floor, all 32 NFL teams, without a problem, even with dead money. There is no example where there's a player in football who makes as much in a signing bonus. For example, this signing bonus, I noticed, $75 million. Think about that. Just to sign the contract, I don't think that the Avs had a payroll of even 75 last year, if I had to think about it. So there'll be the usual comparisons. Hey, his signing bonus is bigger than a payroll of a whole team. Then there'll be those who say, hey, the money Soto got, that's more than someone paid for a team. That's always a popular one. Totally irrelevant. Believe me, Soto couldn't buy the Mets or any team right now for $765 million paid out over 15 years. But I digress. And when I tell you that salary cap is not the end all be all for baseball, it's because of nothing's changed of the way we looked at it before, which is we have to help the teams at the bottom. And the fact is, the salary cap top, if it were ever to be agreed to, the limit of the salary cap would be a place where only a few teams are anyway. And Major League Baseball Players Association has no interest in a salary cap, because in a salary cap sport, like baseball, not like the NFL, but like baseball, in a salary cap sport, when you get a player like Soto, there's got to be money left over to fill out the team, because you know in baseball you can't win with one team. It's different in football or basketball, where you can spend a huge portion of your cap on a player. But even in football, we've seen some issues. Hey, salary cap casualties for the Cowboys, the Rams, even the Chiefs. I would advise all of you who believe that a salary cap is what is needed in baseball to stop these deals from happening, I would encourage you to use your energy in a different direction. I would accuse it to use your energy to root for your team, to understand that the best players in baseball rarely make it to the World Series. The best players on the best teams rarely make it to the World Series. I know, recency bias. I know the Dodgers just won the World Series with Ohtani at 2 million. The Mets don't have Soto at 2 million. New York. I guess if you're a Mets fan and a Jets fan, you're happy because you got Soto and you don't have to pay attention to the fact that the Jets stink, that the Aaron Rodgers experiment is failed. I guess if you're a Yankees fan and you're despondent as well because your Giants stink, Yankees and Giants. For those of you who are Mets and Jets, it's not better. Mets and Yankees, maybe not better. Giants and Jets, definitely not better. What combination of New York baseball and football fan is good right now? Like an all-in good. The Jets and Giants have won one game total in the last 2 months. One game. Two teams, 2 months, one game. It's almost impossible. Literally, since October 8th. Go check it. When I saw the stat, I said that can't be true, but it is. The Jets had the game. They were going to end the Dolphins season, picturing Woody Johnson ending Steve Ross's season. Tua, the ability to say goodbye to Aaron. Aaron, the ability to say goodbye to Tua. It was mutual destruction. The best game is not to play. But boy, did they play. And Miami walked off the Jets in overtime. We'll get to my picks of the day. I don't want to talk about it. Milwaukee. What's the team? Blank time. The Dolphins walked off the Jets. The Jets now, just a little shout out to Woody Johnson, the ambassador to the United Kingdom. Just a quick shout out. The Jets have lost 3 straight games when they've had a 5+ point lead in the fourth quarter. They're only the 4th team in history to do that. And you know what else? The Jets now have the longest active drought across all sports. So for you Mets fans out there who are celebrating, I love it, but keep perspective. Keep perspective. Love what you have. Don't pine for what you don't. But it is true. The Jets have the longest active drought across the NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, and the WNBA thrown in there for really good measure. Ew, that's stinky. I was watching that game so despondent. But then I started to feel better about myself because anytime you watch Josh Allen, you have to feel good. You just have to. Except history was made yesterday twice. Just a little nugget that you may hear today. I want you to think about it, how insane numbers are. Do you know how hard it is to score 6 touchdowns in a football game? You know that's 42 points if you hit the extra points. 6 times 7, 36 at the very least. 6 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, no interceptions, no fumbles. A clean, beautiful game. I don't want to sound like the 47th president, but hey, there you go. A clean, beautiful game. I'm terrible at that. Cody, where are you? When you have a game like that, it's happened 246 times. Guess what the record is for a team that scores 6 touchdowns and doesn't turn the ball over? 245-1. It's unbelievable, isn't it? No team had ever lost. It was 245-0. No team had ever lost until the Bills lost to the Rams 44-42. Josh Allen did something no one's ever done. He rushed for 3 touchdowns. He passed for 3 touchdowns. It's really quite staggering. And yet the Bills lost a game. The Bills lost another game, lost ground to the Chiefs in the bid to host at Orchard Park the AFC Championship. What a game that was. A couple other things happened that I do want to talk about as the Giants were losing in a way that only the Giants can lose. New York has a weird proclivity. Miami does this on the beaches where the nightclubs will advertise when there's a little plane with a guy drinking a 6-pack and there's one little propeller and they're carrying a flag behind them. And you're wondering yourself, how does that look when they land? And it says, come to this show or that show or stay at this hotel or party with this guy. Well, there's a few people you shouldn't party with. We didn't even have time to get to that today. In New York, over Shea Stadium, they used to fly, sell the team when the Wilpons owned it. And they did, not paying attention to the sign, of course. They paid attention to Steve Cohen overbidding. Well, yesterday, the Giants, there was another plane, and it said Mr. Mara. That's so sweet that they didn't call him like Jack Wipe or something. Mr. Mara, enough. Please fix this dumpster fire. of course, talking about John Mara, who's the president and CEO. And the Giants really are a dumpster fire. They lost to the New Orleans Saints, and they could have tied with the field goal, and it got blocked, and it was just ugly. And Daniel Jones is gone. It's a whole Megillah. And that one banner was the talk of the postgame. Strange. Like asking players about it. They asked the coach. He's like, look, we've only won 2 games. I'm not happy either. One of the players said, I didn't pay for the plane. What do I care? But when you think that players, coaches, owners, we see all this stuff, presidents of teams, we look at it, we sort of smile, and then we remember what Ted Lerner always taught me and us. Ted Lerner said they can make fun of me all they want, but guess what? When I wake up tomorrow, I'm still the owner of the Washington Nationals. And when they wake up tomorrow, they're still fans. Nothing wrong with being a fan. I was one of the biggest fans of all time until I got into the sport and learned how the hot dog is made and how the sausage is cooked. But the point, which sounds bitter and terrible and ugly, the point is owners don't look at those signs behind the plane and say, oh, I guess we have a dumpster fire that I ought to pick. What the owner says, president, CEO, is he looks at his GM and he says, don't pay attention to that. We got ourselves a plan. We're going to get one of the top 2 picks, and we're going to get a quarterback so we don't have to watch Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock. Drew Lock, is that the Lost character? Coca, help me. I don't care. I'm blanking. Why am I thinking about Lost right now? Oh, because of Will Manso. It is Drew Lock. The Raiders, who can't keep a quarterback healthy, so a new person gets hurt every single day, including yesterday. They're now positioned in a quarterback-heavy draft that they have an opportunity to try again. And that's all you can do as a team executive. It hurts what's happened with the Giants. It hurts. They've missed the playoffs 11 of the last 13 years. They stink. Their success is pretty serious since 1987 when they won a Super Bowl, 1991 when they won a Super Bowl, a couple more with the Manning brother, Eli. It's a lot of winning. Think about that, Jets fans. Wouldn't you be a Giants fan right now immediately if you could? But you know you can't. Once you're Giants or Jets, that's it. No change. So here's where we stand. We stand with teams that are really bad. Roger Goodell looks out at all of his games from his high perch and says, 6 teams are 3-10. 2 teams are 2-11. That's 25% of our league is putrid. Yeah, he's right about that. Nothing personal pick of the day. Back on Friday night, we had the Bucks getting 7.5 at Celtics. It was one of those NBA things. The Celtics ended up winning by 6. They were up 4, and then there was a last-second hoop, which didn't matter because we got 7.5. We won that. Saturday, we had SMU beating Clemson by 2. Didn't quite happen. Of course, CFP committee got together and said, great job, SMU. We all watched the game. You deserve to be in the playoff. Sorry, Alabama, you're not going to make it because you had a great last 3 quarters, came back, and you lost on a crazy last-second field goal. We can't just have Clemson in and not you. You're both in. Sorry, SEC. Of course, that's led to so many things, which we're going to talk about. Athletic directors going crazy, fans going crazy, networks going crazy, everyone wondering what's going on. Texts between Skipper and myself off the charts. Where's the SEC? Chaos. Then yesterday, I got walked off by the Dolphins. Just crushed. So I ended up going 1-2. I'm 164 and 177. We're getting close to the end. I'm not going to make it, Coca. I'm not going to get back to 500. I think I may even not have 13 picks left the entire season. I can't wait for a fresh start because every day you have a bad day, it doesn't matter because the sun will rise. And you never know what the tide could bring. And for us, it'll bring a 0-0 record after January. But we don't give up. Don't ever give up. The Bengals are playing the Cowboys tonight. The Bengals are just an unlucky team with a phenomenal quarterback in Joe Burrow, who has stats that would indicate that his team should actually be one of the best teams in football. And instead, it's one of the worst. It makes no sense. But they're playing those Dallas Cowboys. We're taking the Bengals -5.5 over the Cowboys as a final nail in the coffin of the Cowboys season, which already was nailed a couple weeks ago. And the Bengals get a little renewed hope, but not really. But it is a good game to watch. I appreciate your time today. We will have more on Soto, on the free agency, on the winter meetings. I promise. We witnessed it. It's just business. Sorry, Yankees fans. This is nothing personal.